Hello everyone. I decided to do some little analysis videos to help you with your preparation for the Slessor essays, and I've been planning to try and do one for each of the poems and also on Virginia Woolf when we can. But let's start with Five Bells, and I'm just going to talk through my analysis just to kind of refresh your memory, even though we have already done this one fairly extensively, or at least most of it. So with Five Bells, the first thing that comes into mind, I'm not going to read through it because it will take too long, is that I'm reading through with two sort of ideas in my head. I'm looking for the meaning and the imagery that goes with that. And then I'm also looking at the back of the mind for style and form and sound, so that I can make those two types of comments in my essay. Initially, straight away, I noticed that we're dealing with five bells. So we're dealing with this idea of something is being measured that is significant. Even if you didn't know the background of five bells being a kind of a sea sort of term, involved in like that culture, you would know that bells are synonymous with church and the idea of usually for whom the bell tolls, things like that. It's a funereal sort of thing. But five bells, we've been told that it's about the watches that happens on ships. So it's this sense of watching and waiting, and also the symbolic meaning of the bell. And we've got time repeated, and words that mean time, hour, lives, life, dead, lives. And we've kind of double, single this idea of measurement and time. It's one of Slessor's favourite motifs. We've got this dehumanizing of time, the little fidget wheels. He later on refers to it as a kind of a clock. And then there's also this sense of that it's a dark warship below, something terrible is going to happen. And that there's a movement, warship continually riding towards death. So you can see some of those things marked on there. We go down further into this deep and dissolving verticals of light. So you can see some of these techniques being the alliterative effects, the repetition, the constant kind of knitting together of his particular kinds of imagery to do with bells, time, water, death. And this idea of a journey as well, the ferry, moving towards something. Five bells coldly rung out in a machine's voice. So this sense of a world without, it's got the time obviously being the machine of the clock, but also could be there is no God voice, there is no kind of touching with that. It's more about this absence of anything, this darkness. The cross hangs upside down in water. So that could be this sense that you're on the other side, and so that you're looking back through into life. Or it could be maybe part of his rejection of religion, perhaps. Why do I think of you, dead man? Why thieve these profitless lodgings from the flukes of thought? So straight away we have this kind of rhetorical question in which we're establishing a character, the speaker of the poem, who's asking these questions. The way that the sentence is written, the rhythm of it, the quality of the language, puts that speaker as an educated, insightful, knowledgeable person, these profitless lodgings from the flukes of thought, an aware person. Anchored in time, you have gone from earth, gone even from the meaning of a name. So it's really articulating the problem of what has happened. And then we kind of move on, and Slessor seems to jump in and out of this conversational sort of style at different elements of his poem, where he asks rhetorical questions, and it's as though he's having a chat. And then it kind of moves back into more of a descriptive emotive kind of way. The pace of it being quite busy and intense, I would say. So then we go into this kind of personification of death, yet something's there, something forms its lips and hits and cries against the ports of space, beating their sides to make its fury heard. So the personification, if you like, of this emotion, of this rage, of this anger, and you've got the repetition there as well. Are you shouting at me, dead man, squeezing your face? So again, continuing with this characterization, the emotive personification of this emotion and the rhetorical questioning. Sorry, it's a bit blurred. But I hear nothing, nothing, only bells. 5 bells, the bumpkin calculus of time. So the bumpkin meaning the kind of the unknowledgeable, and calculus is something that builds up on something. So you could even say that it's like the calculus of time. We are the unknowledgeable, the country bumpkins that just kind of build up on time, and time kind of throws us off in this all-powerful sort of way. And our echoes die, our voices douse, we are no longer. And so it's this idea of oblivion, of being dissolving and completely gone, annihilation, which seems to really drive the kind of the bitter cud of this poem, this sense. And then again, just in this, we've got this, the pygmy strait. I think he's referring to the journey towards death, and the pygmy strait being a rough and difficult journey. So just moving on to the second page. So we've got, and the second page here. So he's talking about his friend, and unimportant things you might have done. At once I thought you did, but you forgot, and all you have now forgotten, looks and words, and slops of beer, your coat with buttons off. So it's kind of this very jovial kind of conversational style in which he's reminiscing about what happened with his friend. He's talking to this friend who's not there, but he's remembering kind of the jovialness of it. And I think that's represented in the I thought you did, you forgot, and, which is kind of got that tumble of words that happens when you're trying to recount what happens and convey looks and words and slops of beer, your coat with buttons off, and how you zoom in on the details of something to try and remember it in a kind of a rich way. And then you've got this kind of this sense of enjoyment of the speaker, of really reminiscing about kind of the cheekiness of the dirtier perfidy of publicans groaning to God from Darlinghurst. So kind of complaining about the terribleness of things and groaning to God, almost making fun of them. But then suddenly this comes to a jarring halt, because we've got this word with 5 bells, pulls us back into line with this recurring imagery of time moving, this symbol of death coming. So we're back on this journey. Then I saw the road, I heard the thunder. And so you've got this kind of rhythm of natural imagery, but that builds this kind of animalistic, the talons of the rain, something it's very predatory, waiting to sweep you up. It's like this death, so dark. You bore no body, had no face, but a sheer voice that rattled out of air. So is this a personification of death? It could be. I thought that it might be. A voice that spoke beside me in the bush. So you've got this mention of glass as well, which is one of the things that is in this poem. He uses this imagery of window panes and glass a lot to kind of show that separation, that kind of invisible separation between life and death that can never be gone through. So we've got some more. It kind of, for me, the pace of it really speeds up. It becomes a very almost hysterical, loud for a breath, or bitten off by wind, of Milton Mellons and the Rights of Man. So what kind of relationship do Milton Mellons and the Rights of Man have? Blowing flutes, Tahitian girls, Brown, angry tongues, Sydney. It's very chaotic and confused, rambling, heightened, And it doesn't make sense. All I heard was words that didn't join on one level because there are all these conflicting images. Milton became melons, melons, girls, and 50 mouths, it seemed, were out that night, and each tree and ear was bending down. So he's trying to make sense of what happened. And he's also using that as a metaphor to make sense of how in his mind it's all very chaotic about Milton and